Hi, welcome back to the final episode for this painting, and welcome to Anyone Can Paint. Today we're going to put in the pumpkins and get those done. We're going to need to put some cast shadows from our buildings that are back in this area. First thing we're going to do is get the pumpkins in so they have a chance to set up and dry. We're going to use our medium flat bristle brush. Remember to get it wet before you stick it in the paint. Just makes it easier to clean out. We're going to grab some orange and a little bit of burnt sienna. And this is going to be our underpainting for our pumpkins. Now remember that the pumpkins that we put in here up in the lower part of the canvas, which are closer to us, could be a little bit larger. And as they go back, they get a little bit smaller. Again, that kind of helps with that sense of some distance. And these are going to be sitting down in this foliage and grasses and things. So just kind of put these in. And put these in different positions, so sometimes they're sitting up, sometimes they're laying on their side. And again, these back here should be a little bit smaller than these up here. And these up here could be much, much larger. And you're going to find, because of the orange is a transparent color, just like the yellow we've talked about in the past. So you're going to have to put this on a little bit thicker sometimes. Just so you don't see that dark underneath. I'm just grabbing some more paint. Remember, it's orange. A little bit of burnt sienna. And you can put in as many of these or as few as you want. Just grab a little bit more paint. A little bit more burnt sienna. Let's leave it at that. We'll see how that goes. We got to put highlights, and we got to put the little ribs that are in there. Let's clean out the brush. And while we let those dry, we're going to go into some white, some brown, a little bit of blue, and we need to put some cast shadows in our ground from those buildings there. So this again is white, a little bit of brown, and some blue. And we're just going to have this come out. Let me put a little bit more brown. That's kind of bright. There, that's better. In fact, I can put a little bit more blue in this. See how that works. That's better. This is going to come right from that building. Remember, the light's coming from the left. And it just kind of comes out like that. This is going to be pretty much in shadow, close. I think a little bit more blue, I think. That's better. A little bit of blue up along the side of this building because it would cast a shadow, obviously. And then back here, it would cast a little bit of a shadow too. And shadows are always determined by the position of the sun. So you can make these shadows to be longer if you'd like, and they could be shorter. It all depends. If the sun is up higher in the sky, then it's going to cast a shadow that's shorter on the ground. As it goes lower, then the shadows extend. So you can get by with whatever you want to say is the position of your sky. Let's go ahead and clean out the brush after that. think the next thing we're going to do while those pumpkins are kind of setting up is, now that we've got them placed, now we can go through and we can put highlights on our vines and all the leaves and things that are growing there. So I'm going to go back to my large fan brush. Again, make sure you get it a little wet. And this is going to be some yellow and just a very small touch of green. And then we're just going to go in, and again, you just want to come in and just bend the bristles up a little bit. And don't cover up all your dark. It's really important that some of that shows through. With allowing some of that dark to show through, you know, we talk about this quite often. This is what really kind of helps it make it look like there's some thickness to it. And it always is just as important as your highlights. The highlights always will give you, obviously, the three-dimensional look, but it's that dark that really brings that three dimension into play. And you can bring some of this right up underneath the base of your pumpkin if you want, so it looks like it's sitting down in some of that. I'm going to reload. I'll be right back. Again, this is yellow with just a little bit of green to it. And I'm just going in and just barely bending the bristles. And just kind of work this around and through. If you get any on your pumpkin, just kind of wipe it off with your finger. I'm going to reload again and I'll be right back up. And just like I told you last week, you know, if you want to put more vines and or more dirt, whatever you want to do, just please feel free to do that. I mean, I think my job is really just to kind of show you the techniques and how you can get things to look certain ways and kind of get some three-dimensional look to them and all the techniques that go with it. And you can certainly apply those in any way you want to. Again, I'm kind of limited with the time I get. And for those of you who are very disappointed to see there's no rocks in this painting, I guess you're just going to have to substitute the pumpkins for rocks. But maybe there'll be rocks in the next one. I know our camera guys love that too. If you guys only knew the razzing I would get for putting rocks in this. And again, don't cover up everything, but you want to be able to see some dark, but you certainly have to have the highlights in here. All right, I think we're going to go with that. Let's go ahead and clean out the brush. And I think our pumpkins are done enough, or dried enough, that we can start putting some highlights in there. I'm going to go back to the, in fact, let's go to the small flat bristle brush. Now we're going to put some highlights on this. Now remember, we got to keep in mind that sunlight's coming in from the left-hand side, so we're going to focus on putting the highlights on the left-hand side. And this is really not so much different than a rock. We were just joking about rocks, but You know, on rocks, we always will put the highlight on that sunlit side, and you put that first initial stroke, and then you lightly work it back into the rock itself. These are very similar to that. We're going to grab some white first. If you still have a little bit of that color left over from when we created the pumpkins, that'll work out just fine. But this needs to be a little bit lighter, obviously. Chiseled edge. And again, we're going to focus on putting this on. I'm going to get that a little bit more orange on the left-hand side. There we go. And I'm just lightly working it down. Then I kind of turn the brush, and I use, because of the texture and how the pumpkin appears, I'm using the flat of the brush just to kind of work that in a little bit. And I'm just lightly skimming over the pumpkin. So again, your first stroke, chiseled edge, then use the width of the brush to work that back to where it just kind of fades out. And I'm just barely touching the pumpkin itself. You know, this isn't like everything else. When we put highlights on, you always want to be able to see some of the underpainting. So you can even see through this one, maybe even that one. You can see the highlights for sure, but you can still see some of that underpainting of that orange that's in there. That's really important to have that in. And that's why it's probably going to be easier that if you put your highlight on using the chiseled edge first, you get that thin stroke. And then you start using the width of the brush and just barely touch the pumpkin itself. And that's how you get that look. And we're just going to continue on. Remember, the small ones you don't have to do a whole lot to. And reload just to kind of shape the brush again. And just a few more. Now again, when you're doing this, if you'd rather have just 116 pumpkins in this, then go right ahead. But I'm trying to do just enough that you can kind of get a good feel for how this is done. And then, like always, you got to remember too, is that acrylics dry a little bit darker. So if you feel you need to go back and hit these highlights again, like maybe you've lost them a little bit, then just kind of go back through